Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Encourage Mindset. I'm your host, Ethan Vandehyve. Today, I have alongside me Nelson Dickson on the show. Welcome, Nelson.
Thanks, Ethan. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, so it's exciting to have guests on all the time, and you're obviously going to provide a new perspective and new outlook on several mindset topics. So, Nelson, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about your background or history of what you've been kind of doing the last couple of years?
Yeah, so really the last year I've been on an entrepreneurial journey of taking the broker model that's been done in so many different industries, from insurance to finance, and moving that to marketing. So I started a marketing brokerage firm out of Greenville, South Carolina, and started it back in March, quit my job in July. It's been gangbusters ever since. So it's been good.
So cool. So it sounds a little bit like to me that, you escaped the matrix, as they say. They call it, the horrible 9 to 5. You have to wake up and hate yourself and hate your life every day. What got you to kind of take this ambition to do this?
Yeah, so I've always had kind of an entrepreneurial spirit, and I had a mentor tell me one time that like way a lot of successful companies are built nowadays isn't necessarily inventing something new, but taking a already existing system or existing model and infusing a new system to it. And so I thought I was an insurance broker, had a background in marketing prior to that. And as a broker in the employee benefits space, I would meet with the CFO, figure out what their plan was for employee benefits, and then meet with X number of companies who could fulfill it. And I thought, this could be done in the marketing space because I had been on both sides of advertising and marketing, the sales of it and purchasing of it. And both were a little bit of a frustrating journey. And so I thought if I could help business owners and marketing directors kind of sort through the noise, then it'd be a win-win.
Yeah, no, for sure. So it sounds like to me you've been busy over the last, couple of months for sure launching this company, which is exciting. So what's been kind of habits or routine that you've been kind of developing as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, that's a great question. Because, as an employee, I was used to being told, like, hey, here's the metrics you're supposed to hit every week, every month, every quarter. And then now I'm on my own. It's like no one's going to tell you to do that except for myself. And so really, I have more of an outcome goal and then whatever it takes to get that outcome. And initially, it was a certain number of meetings that I wanted to have every week, which I knew would lead to X number of clients, so on and so forth. But I'll tell you, man, it was a scary jump. So my wife was a NICU nurse, and we have 3 kids under the age of 6, all with the name C. That's where the name C3 came from, the name of our company. And so, but just having, I don't want to call it pressure, but it was just kind of it's hard to get lazy, I guess, when you have that many mouths depending on you to perform. And so,
for sure. Yeah, I was going to ask you that. Do you feel like there's a lot of pressure to do well because you're trying to manage and take care and provide for your family?
I feel like the most pressure was when I started the company, but I was still working my job and I was kind of battling, do I pull the trigger? Do I keep doing this on the side? But I'll tell you what was weird. Like, I will never forget the last day that I had in my office and just how like eerie quiet it was when I walked out of that door for the last time. And I really liked what I did. I liked the company that I worked for, but I just felt at peace with it. And so I think more of the mind war came prior to making the decision. And then once I made the decision, it was like, okay, here we are. You did what you're supposed to do, and let's run with it and make it happen.
For sure. I think the biggest question when it comes to asking entrepreneur, questions in an interview or whether it's a podcast is you see so many people, especially in today's generation, they're so quick to judge, and a lot of people are so afraid to do something. So Nelson, what got you to be like, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to pursue. I'm going to, not let the noise of the background of all these naysayers come in and, just influence me. So what kind of got you to feel like, this is the path, this is the right thing to do?
Great question there. I'd always just had I guess the best way to say it, I just know it in my knower that this is what I'm supposed to do. Like I just had this gut feeling. And, I figure if everyone agrees with what I'm doing, I'm not doing something right. And I think some advice I was given early on was don't expect people to understand your path if they haven't been given your vision. And I had a vision of where kind of we wanted to go with our family and with our career and our life. And, risk is all relative. I think a lot of the naysayers and people that, like my family, very traditional, very loving family, but it was very much go to school, get with the big company, work till you're 65 and you're done. And so taking a risk of starting your own company is very risky. But at the end of the day, in America, money's the easiest problem in the world to solve. And if things went bad, I could always go back and get a job, and you can't take any of it with you. So I think risk is relative.
Yeah, no, I loved that little quote you kind of gave right there with the vision, because it is true. I mean, nobody sits in your shoes on a daily basis. What else have you kind of learned over the past couple of years with this transition, but otherwise, just your daily life as in general?
I'd say the biggest lesson I've learned is if you can't bet on yourself, then who can you bet on, right? And sometimes I think there just has to be, and regardless of what you're doing, if it's working a job, pursuing sports, pursuing entrepreneurship, I think there has to be a trust in yourself that you've put enough good in you that it's going to come out when you're tested and kind of pressed, to be in that situation that you've prepared for. And so I think just the more incremental small wins that you have, the more confidence it builds. Higher confidence goes up, the more belief you have, the higher your belief, the more activity you take. And it just kind of creates this wheel of good things happening.
Yeah, no, I love that. And as somebody who also does some stuff on the side while working full time, I've been doing that for years and I enjoy it. So just kind of a, curious question on my end is, how did you realize that this is something, worth pursuing full time? And like, how'd you know it was going to get bigger than a side hustle?
It's a great question. Well, when I started my career in advertising, I was selling yellow pages, called back in the glory days. And that was on the Titanic because Google and all the digital stuff was on the rise. And I remember every one of our Monday morning sales meetings was, hey, let's go try to sell this product or this widget. And we had no case studies or anything if this would work, yet I had quotas tied to these products and I was supposed to meet with business owners and sell it to them, not having any case studies or data. And so I thought the marketing world had become very noisy, where a lot of agencies had thought, hey, they all kind of sounded the same to me, at least when I was in the purchasing side of things. And so I got really good at being able to sort through what's a sales rep just trying to sell something and hit a quota to me versus what is a real solution that can help my clients. And I just thought, if I have access to 60 plus vendors when it comes to marketing, and this business owner that I'm meeting with has one company working for them, the math is in my favor that I could produce a better outcome. And so once I had a few case studies that, hey, this was actually working, and we had some clients that were happy, it was like, you kind of have this choice to make. And that was my pivotal moment of, do I keep going on the side or do I dive all in and keep riding the momentum wave that we had already created? Because I didn't want to kill momentum of a company that was my own just to keep, working a job, I guess.
For sure. Yeah. And then a side kind of two-part to that question is, I think a lot of people will invest, their time, money, resources, and et cetera into people they believe, right? So now that you're landing people that they believe in you, they trust in you, they value your expertise and your knowledge in that industry. Is that what you view is what's making you a different person as well to be an entrepreneur in this space? Or is there something else that makes you more niche that you're like, hey, Ethan, this is my gravy right here?
Yeah. I don't know if I have a gravy yet, other than just kind of like a personal philosophy is that I won't be outserved. And what I've seen kind of and not just in the marketing space, but any, vendor relationship, a lot of times, that first 6 months in a partnership, it's like a new marriage. People treat you really well. And then all of a sudden there's a shift where they go from being like your prized possession to just a number in a CRM. And, sometimes the ball gets dropped there. And so what I like to do for my clients is just make sure that does not happen with all their, marketing vendors and stuff in place. And so that's worked out really well just from a service standpoint.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's always fun to talk business and marketing, especially because my background's in marketing. So I can always dive into the weeds on that. But I kind of want to shift gears on this podcast because June is also, if you are aware, it's Men's Mental Health Month, and it kind of gets underappreciated a little bit in my perspective. So Nelson, what's kind of something you think some male listeners of Encourage Mindset should really maybe hear or make sure they're practicing on a daily basis?
Yeah, I remember hearing a talk one time a long time ago, and it was called Secret of the Gates. And it was all about guarding the 3 gates that go into your soul, if you will, which is your eyes, your ear, and your mouth. And so guarding what you see, what you listen to, and what you speak, I think is a huge, huge thing in today's day and age that myself and my family try to practice because, on social media, love the tool. I think it's great for business and stuff, but also we can get caught in this trap of comparing our worst to somebody else's best and get in this comparison game. And comparison, you lose every time, you get involved in that. And so I think, we just have to be really, really guarded to who we let influence us, what we see and listen to, read, speak, because all of that stuff is going into, our processing system, and it can either be programmed for good or bad. And so that's something where I have to be really, really focused, because as an entrepreneur or anything that you do in life, there's going to be highs and lows. And so I think guarding what goes into your mind can help, level you and keep you humble during the highs, but also, keep you up during the lows.
Yeah. So what's some things that you do to make sure you're staying focused?
Yep. So my car is a rolling university. I heard that 12,000 miles in a car is equivalent to 2 years of college. So I figured I'm going to get my PhD in, positive thinking and mindset. And so, and I started this journey of kind of personal growth back when I was 19 years old. I'm 36 today. And I'll tell you, back in, I guess that was 2006, I don't know what the number one hit on the radio was then, and most people don't, but I can vividly tell you a couple books that I read that year or podcasts that I listened to that changed how I thought, and I'm very, very thankful for. And so sometimes it's those little easy decisions that are easy not to do, but also easy to do that, make an impact 3, 4, 5 years down the road.
Yeah. No, for sure. Do you have potentially like a podcast or a book or something that you just talked about that you'd recommend for somebody to find motivation or improve their mindset?
Ed Milet's tough to beat. I love his, podcast on YouTube. He has a lot of good insights around positive thinking and success. From a book standpoint, I wouldn't even know where to start on that. Maybe Master Key to Riches by Napoleon Hill is one of my favorites, because he talks about a mastermind principle in there. And I think just that principle of association and getting a good group of people that you trust and who you let influence you can really make a difference.
So you've said, you started diving into the positive thinking around age 19. Obviously, you're more mature now, as they say. You've grown and learned a lot and went through some failures and some challenges. So this is kind of always a fun question that I just kind of think of sometimes, is if you were going to write a book, maybe you already have, but if you're going to write a book on positive thinking or mindset, what would kind of be your topic and why would you choose that?
Probably it would be something around the voice you hear the most, and around like how we are our own worst critic and we're also our best positive asset. Because I think we don't pay attention to some of the things that we say. And what's really interesting, like when you're talking to me, my mind could be going a million different places, but when I'm speaking, you hear it both on the outer ear and your inner ear. And so what you say to yourself actually has a huge difference and huge impact on your life. That's actually a really good book, What to Say When You Talk to Yourself. I forget who wrote it. And it's not like where you can't sit in a garage and say, I'm a car, I'm a car, I'm a car. But however, you can program your mind. The more you speak something and believe something, the more your body will actually try to act it out for it to become a reality. And so I don't know what avenue I would go down in the book, but it would be a lot around that.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think that's something that I've never really heard of before, because a lot of people say positive affirmations, do positive affirmations, but I liked the way that you worded that, because it doesn't seem so, to me, sometimes positive affirmations seem so fake. Like
Yes, it does
sometimes, but that's just me.
So I played golf through school, and if I hooked one out of bounds, I would not just say like, "Oh, Nelson, that was a great shot," but it was little things like before a shot, if I had doubt in my mind or was backing up and saying, Nelson, you've done this 1,000 times before, you're more prepared than anybody, and to just step up and get in that right mindset and go, so it wasn't like this whole, just be a wallflower and say everything's awesome when it's not, but it's just trying to get your mind to believe what you actually want to believe, and not the voices that are in your head telling you otherwise.
For sure. So how do you, what is kind of the step process, or what's kind of your thinking on like around how to be more prepared, how to get to that level where you're telling yourself, hey, I've prepared for this. I've done this a million times before. Because most people, Nelson, I mean, you've been around them. They're just like, man, I suck. Man, I can't get out of this. Man, this is the worst thing ever. This is the worst day. How are you? Oh, I'm okay. I'm fine. Like, how can we get to that level where it's, I'm prepared, my brain is, thinking strategically. What can we do?
It's a great question. I think it's an input output game. I learned early on, and I'm still learning this, but to steal time. I graduated college and never read a full book. I'm not proud of that. It's just a fact. And so when I started to read and actually read books that I thought would help me in my future, I will never wake up, even to this day, I'll never wake up and say, man, I can't wait to read. I can't stand it. But the way I started was when I started my car, I read a page. And when I stopped my car, I read a page. And so over the course of a day, you've read 15, 20, 30 minutes, and that adding that up, that's 1 to 2 books a month. Over the course of 4 or 5 years, that really adds up. And so I think it's not necessarily eliminating the negative voices, but you can drown them out just by how much positive and stuff you put in. And so that's kind of my default, that if I'm just not having a great day, it's like, all right, how can I drown this out and just put positive in me?
Yeah, no, I love that, especially because I don't know, we get so busy with our lives, right? And this is something that I really struggle with as a man of faith and trying to, give more time to God. It's like, man, like a lot of my time gets filled with other things. And then you get to the end of the day and you're exhausted and it's like, you went to bed and you totally forgot to pray at night. And it's like, oh man,
Yeah.
just alive sometimes. But I'm sure everyone can listen to what you said and hopefully find a way to learn and really implement that. So that is some fantastic advice. Is there kind of anything else under that segment that you want to share that maybe you've, heard elsewhere from a different book or something along those lines of way to generate more positivity than all this harsh negativity that we see, especially because this month really needs to be heard for the males?
Yeah. I wasn't necessarily planning on sharing this, but I can tell you, like, I actively struggled with depression up through like 8th and 9th grade and wasn't really sure why or what was going on. And so I'm a man of faith as well, the same background. And I remember, like, one of my favorite verses, Hosea 4:6, that people were destroyed for a lack of knowledge. And I thought, if I'm being destroyed, like if I'm destroying myself with bad input, how can I change that? Like, how can I just put good in and start looking at, this is what I say about myself, but does that match up with what my creator says about me? And a lot of times what I thought, those were two different things. And so I wanted my mind more on, what my creator said about me. And I think about, like, you remember Geek Squad? I don't know if they're still around, but
Yeah,
they fix
yeah.
computers. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. When I tried to fix my computer, it would take hours. I'd end up breaking it instead of helping it. But if I took it back to the manufacturer, they knew what to do. I kind of had I think that same principle applies in life, when things aren't going that well. I mean, I'm very rooted in my faith. I try to go back. That's our true north, and saying, hey, where am I out of line with that?
Yeah, no, I love that. Especially, yeah, I think everyone needs to hear that. And that's something that we got to make sure we're giving more of a priority to instead of these intangible and tangible goods that we really obsess about, and especially on earth that,
Right.
down the line are going to be meaningless in the next couple of years anyways.
Yep. Exactly. There'll always be a newer car. There'll always be a bigger house.
Exactly. Well,
So,
and that's the thing, right? So how can maybe you've kind of learned this throughout your knowledge and, diving into mindset and motivation. How can we find a way to be less greedy and jealous of people?
that's a great question. I think it's so weird because I think competition is it's a healthy thing, but it can be steered in the wrong direction when you get in the comparison game. Because think about it, when you compare, which is what leads to jealousy, you know, if you're doing better than everyone else, then that can lead to laziness and saying, oh, I'm doing great. Well, if you look at everyone else and they're that further along, it's like, oh, well, I suck. Right. And so you're never in a good spot when you do that. And so I just try to think about it like, you know what? God's no respecter of persons. Where they're at in their life, that's awesome. I'm going to cheer them on. And then, when I hit goals and stuff in my life, I hope people will cheer me on too, because it's not in our life and I guess in the quote unquote success, however people define that, it's different. It's not a limited sliced pie. There's no limit on how many people can achieve whatever they're setting out to achieve in life. And so if it was limited, then I think there'd be a lot more room for jealousy. But I think that's something that gets in our mind that's, I guess kind of a false evidence appearing real which is a good acronym for fear, by the way, of why where jealousy comes from. Because a lot of times we don't even know the full story.
Exactly. And I don't really have much to add to that, but this conversation has been really enlightening, really enriching, and I've learned a lot of new books and podcasts I need to check out, it seems like. So I appreciate that, Nelson. Is there anything else on today's episode, with it being June, or anything that you want to share towards mental health? I'll give you the floor.
Yeah, great question. I think the biggest thing I would share with people is that you're enough. I think a lot of our time is spent saying, I lack this, I lack that, or I wish I could be more like this. I think God created us with all of us having unique gifts that are to us. And I think those seeds of greatness are in each and every one of us. We just have to figure out how to make use of that so that it benefits society. But I don't think we lack anything. And I hope anyone listening to this feeling like, oh, I may be lacking something in life. You're not. You have gifts and talents that are unique to you. And I just hope everyone goes on a journey to realize what those are.